Welcome to today's Explainer. Get ready because we're about to unpack a truly fascinating historical journey. We're talking about a story that spans continents, cultures, and generations. How exactly does the son of a goat herder from Kenya rise up to become America's commander-in-chief? It's a narrative that's just packed with twists, serious determination, and major historic milestones. So let's jump right in and trace this unlikely path step by step. Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp the weight of this whole story, we've got to start with this incredibly powerful quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He famously envisioned a nation where character mattered way more than skin color, a place where the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners could literally sit down together at the same table. Now, what's so striking here is the sheer historical poetry of it all. When MLK delivered that legendary speech to a massive crowd, the White House was, well, exactly that, exclusively white. But exactly 41 years later, that powerful dream materialized in a way very few could have ever predicted.
Section 1. A Dream Realized. A True Civil Rights Milestone.
The number 44. It represents a massive, monumental shift in American history. It stands for Barack Hussein Obama becoming the 44th President of the United States, officially stepping in as the nation's very first African-American commander-in-chief. The historical weight of that achievement is absolutely monumental. But to really understand how he actually reached that 44th presidency, we need to rewind the clock a bit.
Section 2. Early Life and Education.
Just think about the sheer contrast in his heritage for a second. On one side, you have his father, Barack Obama Sr., who was a goat herder from the Luo tribe in Kenya. He kept pushing for his education until he eventually won a scholarship to study in the U.S. And on the other side, Ann Dunham, a student all the way from Kansas. These two people came from vastly different worlds, but they ended up meeting at the University of Hawaii in 1960. They married early the next year, and just 6 months later, Barack was born.
Now, what's really interesting to look at here is how much he moved around as a kid. After his parents divorced when he was just 2, his mother remarried an Indonesian man. So in 1965, young Barack packed up and moved to Jakarta. But things didn't stay settled for long. By 1971, with some unrest brewing in Indonesia, his mother got pretty worried about his safety and his schooling. So, at just 10 years old, he was sent all the way back to Hawaii to live with his grandparents.
Despite all those moves and the challenges of growing up without his biological father around, his academic track record was just absolutely stellar. After finishing high school in '79, he headed to Occidental College in LA. Then he transferred over to Columbia University in New York, getting his degree in political science. But the real game changer happened in 1990. He graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law School and made absolute history by becoming the very first African-American editor of the Harvard Law Review.
Section 3. Community Work to Politics.
Before the Harvard days, though, he did something really foundational. Back in 1985, he moved to Chicago to work as a community organizer on the South Side. He spent his time in neighborhoods like Roseland and Altgeld Gardens, working directly with low-income residents. And our sources point out that this was a totally defining period for him. He didn't come from money himself, and getting right there on the ground level gave him this profound, first-hand understanding of the everyday struggles faced by the working poor.
Of course, his rising legal career ended up completely intertwining with his personal life. In the summer of '89, he took a job at a Chicago law firm called Sidley Austin, and guess we met? A young lawyer named Michelle Robinson, who was actually assigned to be his mentor. They hit it off, married in October 1992, and eventually welcomed their 2 daughters, Malia and Sasha. Oh, and right alongside starting a family, he spent over a decade teaching constitutional law at the University of Chicago.
And this brilliantly illustrates how all that grassroots and legal background naturally translated into actual legislation. When he was elected to the Illinois State Senate in 1996, he hit the ground running. He worked with both Democrats and Republicans to draft ethics laws, expand healthcare for the poor, improve early childhood education, and even create earned income tax rebates. Right out of the gate, he was building this really strong track record of pragmatic, bipartisan work.
Section 4. Journey to the U.S. Senate. Taking things to the national stage.
Let's fast forward to October 2002. The whole country was locked in a tense debate about going to war with Iraq. During a speech at Chicago's Federal Plaza, Obama took a very public, very clear stance. He stated, "I am not opposed to all wars. I'm opposed to dumb wars." He went on the record right then warning about the potential loss of life, the immense costs, and all the severe difficulties that a conflict like that would bring.
That early vocal opposition, combined with his solid legislative record, set the stage for a massive turning point in the summer of 2004. He was invited to give the keynote speech at the Democratic National Convention in Boston, supporting presidential nominee John Kerry. And he really delivered. He spoke passionately about national unity and focused heavily on shared American values over divisions. That single speech put him on the national map overnight.
And you can see how that momentum just carried straight into the voting booth. In the November 2004 U.S. Senate election in Illinois, Obama captured a staggering 70% of the vote against Republican Alan Keyes. That wasn't just a win. It was the largest electoral victory margin in Illinois history. It fully cemented his leap from state politics straight into the national spotlight.
Section 5. Obama in the White House.
Let's break down the data from his two historic presidential runs. After jumping into the race and winning a tough primary, he faced off against Republican John McCain in 2008. On November 4th, he emerged victorious. 4 years later, in the 2012 matchup, it was Obama versus Republicans Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, and once again, he won, securing over 60% of the Electoral College support to lock in his second term.
During his time in the Oval Office, there were several highly significant global milestones. Early on in 2009, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Then, a couple of years later, on May 2, 2011, he announced to the nation that a U.S. military operation in Abbottabad, Pakistan, resulted in the death of Osama bin Laden.
Section 6. Life after Presidency. On January 19, 2017, he spent his final day in the Oval Office, and his family subsequently moved into a rented home in the Kalorama neighborhood of Washington, D.C.
But to really grasp his enduring cultural impact, we actually need to look backwards for a second, at something he wrote way before he ever ran for president. In 1995, he published his autobiography, Dreams from My Father. It's a deeply personal book that tackles some really complex themes around race and his unique upbringing. It was heavily praised by literary legends like Toni Morrison, and it's been translated into more than 25 languages worldwide.
So the crucial point is that his ability to connect with people goes way beyond politics. In 2006, the audiobook version of Dreams from My Father actually won a Grammy Award for Best Spoken Word Album. It just goes to show how his unique storytelling abilities were resonating globally long before he ever sat behind the Resolute desk, and how they continue to do so today.
Which leaves us with one really vital question. What does Obama's journey teach us? I mean, from a goat herder's son in Kenya, to a kid navigating his identity in Hawaii and Indonesia, to a community organizer walking the streets of Chicago, all the way up to the highest office in the world. It is such an unlikely, historically massive narrative. And it really leaves us with a lot to chew on when it comes to opportunity, unity, and seeing a seemingly impossible dream actually come to life. Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer with us today.